Okay, Bafundi, let's look at this fabulous sewing machine that has survived centuries and still working fabulously. So, bobbin-wise, it only takes these bobbins that are a little bit shorter. So all the bobbins that are here with this machine are specifically for this machine. We'll wind a bobbin. Let's maybe start with that. Let's wind a bobbin. So the bobbin winder is over here, this little guy here. We're going to put the cotton on this little spool underneath this little tension regulator. And then from the inside of the bobbin through to the outside. Let's see if I can get that right. There we go. So it's threaded through. And you'll see there's a small hole here that, these holes are going to clip into this little, like there's the male version there, that now needs to clip into that little bobbin piece. So that's going to hold the bobbin firmly in place. You see they just clicked into place there. Once the bobbin is connected, you click that into place. And then you can just, come on. There we go. This little rubber needs to wind on that piece of metal, and sometimes it takes a while to get going. So see here, I'm just putting a little bit of extra pressure there. There we go. Once it's a little bit wound, I'm just going to cut that off so that it's not in my way. Putting a little bit more pressure there. It is an old machine. Sometimes you have to give it some TLC to work. Okay, Alba, I'll catch you. So once you've wound that, you can clip it out there, grab this off. I'm just going to cut that off. The bobbin itself, it's going to sit, now this I always have to try and remember, it must wind this way, anti-clockwise, sitting flat, and then, or am I on drugs? Must be clockwise. Clockwise. Yeah, boy. And then this needs to go into that little groove there and pull back up until that little line there. There we go. Perfection. Now we'll leave that for a second there. Here to thread this part, spool's going to go on top there. Going to come through this hook. Going to go down underneath the tension regulator, through those discs. And this little spring, the cotton essay has to come out this end. So what you can do is hold this tight and just pull it all the way back. Yeah, there we go, all the way back. See, the spring is lifted, and when it drops, it's put the thread there. See that? You can also just lift the spring and make sure it's in that hook, and then let the spring go down. Whatever's going to work for you. At the end of the day, what needs to happen is that when you pull this thread through this uptake arm, that spring needs to bounce. So if you've not brought it through that tension regulator properly, and you pull this, okay, now I did actually accidentally thread it correctly. But anyway, this is what you need to see. You need to see that spring jumping up and down. From there, into that little goodie, into that little goodie, into that little goodie. And I think this one is threading right to left, if I remember. Am I right? Yes. Right to left. Come on, punk. There we go. Right to left. Okay, then we're going to hold on to this thread and just do one stitch, and you see there it grabs the thread around the bobbin and it brings that bobbin back up. There we go. So you should, on the bobbin, see the thread kind of on top of the bobbin to hold that bobbin in place. And that should be that. Always go a couple stitches just by hand to make sure that nothing crazy is happening. Good job. Once that's going, you're gone. Threading wise, we've already gone through that, but we can just check again from here, through this hook, around the tension regulator, making sure we're up in that groove, then underneath the spring, uptake arm, through these little grooves, and down to the needle. This needle threading right to left. Am I right? Yeah, right to left. Then, yeah, like any other machine, you're just going to put your foot down and there it's going to go. This one's reverse, doesn't snap back. So once you push reverse, it's going to go in reverse and it's going to keep going in reverse until you tell it to come forward again. And the stitch length is determined by this little knob over here. So I'm going to leave that down. So this knob, you can loosen it up a little bit. And then you can decide, here, this is your stitch length lever. If it's all the way down there, then your stitch length is quite long. So then you can tighten it where it's fallen there. And then obviously your reverse is also going to be quite long. If you have it closer, this is 0. So that will just be stitching in one place. Obviously that's a very short stitch. So you can just regulate your stitching here. This thing, what it does is make sure that, let's see, if my stitch is very short, I'm going to shift this up until it doesn't want to shift anymore. And this makes sure that my forward stitch and my reverse stitch are the same length. Whereas if I didn't have this in place, I could do a short forward and a long backwards. Doesn't really matter, no one's going to die. But that's what this one does. It just regulates the tension, the length of the stitch. So you decide what length you want your stitch, and you just move this until it kind of bangs into that piece. And then you can tighten it, and then you'll know your reverse is the exact same length as your forward. And that is that. Good,